All right, and welcome back to First Team Fantasy. Today we have a couple of chock full episodes, and I'm going to start it off with the Rams heading into Baltimore to take on the Ravens. Um, Quite an insane game.
Yeah.
The Ravens were favored by 7 in this one. The over/under was 40. Ravens ended up winning in overtime on a punt return touchdown, 37-31. Quite a surprising game from the side of the Ravens, at least due to the fact that we all knew what the weather was going to be all week, and we thought it was going to be a run-heavy game.
Yeah.
Well, Lamar ran the ball 11 times for 70 yards, but other than that, I mean, Gus ran the ball 6 times for 15 yards. That was it out of him. He only played 28% of the snaps. Keaton Mitchell ran the ball 9 times for 54 yards. Also caught one of his two targets for 8 yards, which was 7.2 points, but also expected more out of the run game. Justice Hill actually played the most out of all the running backs due to the amount of passing the Ravens did.
Mm-hmm.
And he did not record any rushes, but he caught one of his two targets for 12 yards, giving him 2.2 points. So the running backs were not very effective in this game for the Ravens, as I at least thought they would be.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people did as well. But yeah, that's what we got. Lamar, as you could probably tell due to the lack of running, threw the ball quite a bit. 43 times, as a matter of fact, completed 24 of them for 316 yards, 3 touchdowns, also 1 interception. But he finished with 32.64 fantasy points. I believe he was the quarterback one on the week. So Lamar had quite a day, and one that I was not expecting to go in that direction.
Yeah.
Isaiah Likely was huge in this one, played 79% of the snaps, and got 7 targets, caught 5 of them for 83 yards and a touchdown, giving him 19.3 points. He is obviously going to be a huge part of this offense as the tight end is, and he's proving that he could fit right into that role. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, he's really fast for a tight end, and he was able to do his thing. As long as he can catch the ball, he's going to be a great option.
Yeah.
Odell played 53% of the snaps, but proved to be pretty much the wide receiver 1B to Zay Flowers wide receiver 1A.
Yeah.
Got 10 targets in this one, caught 4 of them for 97 yards and a touchdown, giving him 19.7 points. It's very obvious that this is what the Ravens wanted and paid for, a healthy Odell down this stretch, and he is proving to be worth his contract.
Yeah.
Um, Rashad Bateman, on the other hand, just cannot seem to connect with Lamar on the deep ball by any matter of it's every week. He's like open for one, and then they realize it, go to him, and Lamar either misses him or Rashad stops running, whatever the case may be. It's just not connecting with them,
Yeah.
and he is actually down in snaps to 34 this week, only 47%. He'd been in the 60s, 70s at the very least. So that was disappointing to see. I mean, he's still a talent, but on a wide receiver core where he does not have to be the first or even second option. So they're not going to give him as many targets as he would have a couple years ago. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers finished with 6 catches on 10 targets as well for 60 yards and a touchdown. Also got a 2-point conversion, giving him a solid 20 points. Great day out of him. Played 97% of the snaps. Obvious wide receiver one in Baltimore.
Yeah.
Nelson Aguilar caught all 5 of his targets for 32 yards, giving him 8.2 points. Played 60% of the snaps. I mean, it's pretty much a trade-off with him and Rashad Bateman. Not that I'd trust either one of them on any given week, but that's kind of what it is at this point. Odell, fortunately, is seeming like a pretty decent option.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's getting late, so I don't know if I'm necessarily throwing Odell in my lineups, but Zay Flowers, on the other hand, most definitely am.
Yeah.
Um, so that's really all for the Ravens moving forward. On to the Rams. You actually had much, much better day than I thought for a lot of guys in this weather,
Yeah.
just like on the side of the Ravens. Matt Stafford also threw the ball over 40 times, was 23 for 41, 294 yards, 3 touchdowns, had one rushing attempt for a negative yard, which was a kneel, obviously. 23.7 points for him. They play the Washington Commanders next week, so if you are in need of a quarterback, you don't trust your option for this week, there are a lot of tough matchups. Matt Stafford might be a good streaming one.
Mm-hmm.
Kyron Williams got, what you love to see out of your running back. Unfortunately, was stopped on the one, so he didn't get those 6 points, but still got 90% of the snaps, 25 carries for 114 yards, caught 3 of his 4 passes for -1 yard, but,
Yeah.
still like that. 14.3 points. Had he gotten into the end zone, would have been another 20-point day for Kyron Williams.
Yeah.
As I said, they play Washington next week. Not a greater week to have him than in the semifinals against the Washington Commanders, a defense that has been awful.
Yeah.
So, and Royce Freeman only got 3 carries for 9 yards, only played 10% of the snaps, which, if you do have Kyron, is also great to see. Back to full health, full workhorse mode.
Mm-hmm.
Cooper Kupp had his, I think, best game of the year, maybe. I could be wrong, but he
Just
absolutely went
below.
off.
Just below.
Yeah, he went
A fantastic game.
pretty ballistic. 8 catches on 10 targets for 115 yards and a touchdown, giving him 25.5 points. He is back. The Rams are very well, with this Packers loss, which we will cover in the next episode, Rams are very well contending for a wild card spot right now.
Yeah.
So with the way Cooper Kupp, Matt Stafford, as I'll get to him right now, Puka Nacua, with the way they're all playing, and Kyron Williams, the Rams are definitely that offense I'd like to have pieces of going into the fantasy playoffs.
Yeah.
On to Puka Nacua. He had 5 catches on 8 targets for 84 yards. Also had one rush attempt for 6 yards, giving him a solid 14 points. Played 94% of the snaps. One of his catches was absolutely insane, diving across like a catch, like about almost went out on the side. It was just a beautiful catch. Had no gloves on. In the rain. Dude is a baller. Like,
yeah.
he's a baller. I can't deny it. Watched him ball out against my own team. He's really like that. And they have a 1-2 punch similar to the days when Robert Woods was, just, it's just as good, if not better. Tyler Higbee did not play in this one, so Davis Allen stepped up, caught 4 of his 5 passes for 50 yards and a touchdown, giving him 15 points. Also played 71% of the snaps. How that affects things moving forward, I don't think it really does at all, because we all saw the deal that Tyler Higbee signed.
Yeah.
Demarcus Robinson pretty much took over the Tutu Atwell role. Tutu Atwell only got 1 target that he did not catch, and this one absolutely got obliterated on that target. So he only played 12% of the snaps. Demarcus Robinson played 86% of the snaps and caught 3 of his 10 targets for 46 yards and a touchdown, giving him 13.6 points. Not really someone I'd look to unless you're in much deeper leagues going into some sort of, not really. It's just good for a guy like Matt Stafford that there's another option, because that's more touchdown passes for him.
Yeah.
Which is more points.
Yeah.
But that's really all for this one. A much, much different game than I thought we would be seeing, but that was the case for quite a few games this week, as we will go over.
Yeah, and that'll take me to my first game, which was the Buccaneers taking on the Falcons in Atlanta. The Bucs were able to win it 29-25. A bit higher scoring than I thought, only because Atlanta's offense isn't the greatest, but a lot of people had good days. One guy had a very bad day that could have hurt a lot of teams. To get into it, Baker Mayfield, 14 of 29 for 144 yards, so not very efficient. Did throw 2 touchdowns, though. Carried the ball 3 times for 3 yards, and also rushed for a touchdown. Finished with 20 fantasy points, 20.06. It's a solid week for Baker Mayfield. Rachaad White, yet again, successful on the ground to a degree. 25 carries for 102 yards. Only saw 2 targets out the backfield, but did catch both of them for 33 yards and a touchdown. 21.5 fantasy points. Rachaad White has been one of those late round picks that absolutely propelled you to the playoffs. He has been very consistent the past 8 weeks.
And the crazy thing is, as bad as the Buccaneers are with that win, they're now on the top of their division. So every game from here on out is very meaningful for them.
Yeah.
Which is great because looking honestly at the playoff picture right now, this is the best possible situation for anybody playing fantasy football in the playoffs, or if your season happens to keep going, due to the fact that there is nobody in a clear lead.
Yeah.
Everything is so close right now. Everybody's either fighting for a number 1 spot for the bye, or they're fighting to stay in the playoffs. It is so close from it's insane. So it's really good for fantasy football because everybody's playing meaningful football in these weeks.
Yeah, no one can take a week off. That's
No.
absolutely true. Someone who basically did take the week off in a huge week for a lot of people is Mike Evans.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just tough. It's very tough. He had 6 targets. He caught one of them for 8 yards, 1.8. And he's been incredibly consistent. And this dud week came at the worst possible time for a lot of people. He's obviously still a guy you have to start every week. It's one of those terrible weeks. It just came at a very unfortunate time. Also Baker completed 14 passes for 144 yards, so there wasn't much to go around in that offense.
Chris do play in Lambeau next week.
Yeah. There is hope there.
Decent matchup.
Yeah.
It is a decent matchup, though.
Yeah. Chris Godwin finally out-targeted and out-caught Mike Evans in a game. He had 11 targets, caught 5 of them for 53 yards, 10.3 fantasy points. If you put him in at your flex, it's not a terrible week. I won't say it didn't help you win, but it also didn't lose you the week. So
yeah, it's back to the Chris Godwin we at least know, unlike the Chris Godwin of the past few weeks who had completely just fallen off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
So it's a slight return that we like to see at least. The target volume is there.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true. And the last guy for the Bucs was Cade Otton, who caught the other touchdown outside of Rachaad White. He was targeted 5 times, caught 2 of them for 16 yards, finished 9.6 fantasy points. He's been weird because he's out there the entire game, but his target share just has not been there to any degree of a consistent basis. So even with that touchdown this week, he's still not someone I'm looking to start, especially with there being no buys next week. Just not a risk I'd be willing to take, especially because last week I played against Cade Otton in fantasy, and he got 0. He did nothing. So, just to show. The Falcons side of the ball, Desmond Ridder, a very good day fantasy-wise. 26 of 40, 347 yards, a touchdown, and interception. Carried the ball 4 times for 15 yards and another touchdown. 26.38 fantasy points. We're never looking to start Desmond Ridder, but 26 completions and 350 yards means it was probably a good day for some of the guys we do look to start. One of them being Bijan Robinson. No, go ahead.
One thing I wanted to add on that is we've seen the Bucs defense be very good for opposing quarterbacks and wide receivers, especially going into these, most important weeks of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, they play Green Bay next week. Guys like Jaden Reed, Jordan Love become way more valuable against the defense that just gave up everything to the Atlanta Falcons offense, which has been horrible passing the ball.
Yeah.
So that is something to keep in mind going into these most important weeks.
No, absolutely. And it's tough because if you're just looking at these matchups now, you're roster locked unless it's a waiver wire and things like that. Some people try to draft with playoffs in mind. That is a dangerous game to play because
You have to make it there. Yes.
Exactly. But no, 100%. The Buccaneers defense, after giving this up to the Falcons, I feel a lot more confident with the Packers.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bijan only carried the ball 10 times for 34 yards, but he scored a touchdown. He also caught 5 passes on 7 targets for 54 yards, finished 19.8. That's a very solid week. Yeah, we love that from Bijan. Tyler Algier and Cordarrelle Patterson played very minimal in this game. Algier only had 4 fantasy points, and Patterson had 0.7. So, does seem like they're finally giving Bijan the main workload, which he obviously should get.
Yes.
Drake London. Was this the best game of his career so far?
I believe so. I've never seen him that close to 200 yards on the Falcons, so yeah.
Yeah. 11 targets, caught 10 of them, 172 yards, and a 2-point conversion, 29.2. That's a guy that I liked to start for him this week, and that's someone that could have just propelled you into playoffs. That's a huge week for Drake London, who should be around like your flex play too, or like a wide receiver 3. So
I would have worn my Drake London USC shirt, but Lamar had a day, so
yeah,
I had to go through Lamar.
rightfully so. But have an absolute day, Drake London. That is a monster week. Kyle Pitts even played 85% of snaps, a lot higher than we're normally seeing from him. He was targeted 6 times, caught 3 of them for 57 yards and a touchdown, 14.7 fantasy points. We'll talk about it more in the preview next week. It's just tough to start like a Kyle Pitts in the playoffs when you know it's in the realm of possibilities that he absolutely duds you. But we'll cover it more in the preview, but a very solid week for Kyle Pitts. Jonnu Smith played 69% of snaps. He was actually targeted more than Pitts, 7 times. Caught 4 of them, but only for 27 yards, 6.7 fantasy points. If we're interested in one of the two right now, it's Kyle Pitts. That's how it should be. That's how it should have been all season. But yeah, Jonnu Smith is still more involved than I would like at this late in the season, and it'll probably stay that way. But that is all I had for that one.
All right. Well, on to the next one, which also delivered a couple disappointing performances from guys who, like Mike Evans in the past game, have been solid most of the season. Detroit went into Chicago and absolutely got obliterated. The Lions lost 13-28, obviously not covering, and yeah, it was fairly horrible for anybody who, was counting on Amon-Ra or Sam Laporta this week, or Jared Goff. I mean, I will go on record and apologize for saying I know I said Jared Goff was probably a good start this week, thinking, hey, he threw 3 interceptions against the Bears last time. Obviously, they're going to see what they did wrong and fix it. They did nothing of the sort. Jared Goff will finish this season against the Bears with 4 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, including, I think, the 2 fumbles he lost in the first game against them. So 7 total turnovers and 4 touchdowns against the Chicago Bears.
Sheesh.
So I apologize for that. That was not something that I saw repeating itself, but here we are.
Yeah.
Jared Goff was 20 for 35, 161 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks, 1 rush attempt for no yards, finishing with 8.4 points. Bad, yet unfortunately not as bad as some others you were definitely starting this week. David Montgomery delivered a fairly disappointing performance, yet it didn't kill you. Only played 35% of the snaps, and while I thought it was going to be the other way around with Jahmyr Gibbs getting the lesser portion of the snaps, we know that he is the receiving back effectively. So, like the Ravens with Justice Hill, when they're passing the ball, they're going to have Jahmyr Gibbs out there.
Yeah.
They were down from the jump against the Bears. So, they didn't really have much time to impose their will. They were getting Bears' will imposed quite literally upon them.
Yeah.
So it was disappointing to say the least. David Montgomery only had 10 attempts for 66 yards, caught all 3 of his targets for 19 yards, which pretty much saved his day, giving him 11.5 points. Jahmyr Gibbs was much more effective in this one, 11 attempts for 66 yards. Also got a touchdown, which was a great run by him.
Mm-hmm.
Caught 3 of his 4 targets for 16 yards, giving him 17.2 points. The Lions running backs did not kill you in this one, but Jahmyr Gibbs, like I said, someone you probably had to throw in at your flex at the very least, definitely gave you a performance worth playing.
Yeah.
David Montgomery, on the other hand, hopefully you didn't need more than 11.5 points because it was a rough one.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it wasn't as rough as anybody who was counting on Sam Laporta this week. He had 1 rush attempt for 4 yards and caught only 2 of his 6 targets for 23 yards, giving him 4.7 points.
Yeah.
Very disappointing in a week. Probably a lot of people needed a decent amount of points out of him.
Yeah.
Even more disappointing, I'd say, is somebody who's been very consistent pretty much this entire year. Amon-Ra St. Brown caught 3 of his 9 targets for 21 yards. If you are playing in a league that defensive stats count, he also had a tackle and forced a fumble. So that would have given him a few more points. But if not, he only got 5.1 points. So that was extremely disappointing. Can't really blame him too much. Jared Goff just apparently cannot play well against the Chicago Bears.
Yeah.
That was just a bad game, all in all. Jameson Williams was also fairly absent from this one. Had 1 rushing attempt for 4 yards. Did not catch his lone target. 0.4 points. Josh Reynolds was the lone bright spot in any effect in the receiving game. He caught 3 of his 4 targets for 44 yards and a touchdown, giving him 13.4 points. So if you were for some reason playing Josh Reynolds, good for you. But most people probably were not, and were disappointed with either Amon-Ra or Sam Laporta. Khalif Raymond finished with 3 catches on 4 targets for 15 yards.
Yeah.
So that's it for the Lions. Like I said, very disappointing. However, not disappointing was Justin Fields. 19 attempts for 33 yards, 19 completions on 33 attempts. That was entirely backwards. 223 yards and a touchdown all through the air. Had 12 attempts for 58 yards and also another touchdown on the ground. 24.7 for Justin Fields. Great game. Unfortunately, is going up against the Cleveland Browns defense this coming week. So
it's a tough matchup. Very tough.
It's not one that I'm very comfortable testing the waters with in a very important week. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said and have been saying, when he is rushing the ball 12 times, 10 plus, anywhere in that, land of carries, then it's going to be tough for any of us to trust a Chicago Bears running back.
Yeah.
Well, we figured out this week that the only one apparently that the Chicago Bears trust is Deontay Foreman, because he had 11 attempts for 50 yards, also caught 2 of his 3 targets for 22 yards, giving him 9.2 points. He played 55% of the snaps. Khalil Herbert played 17%, only 12 snaps for him. Kari Blasingame played 20% of the snaps. Herbert ran the ball 3 times for 8 yards, and Roschon Johnson ran the ball 1 time for 6 yards. So both of them have been. Roschon played 28% snap, or 28%, 20 snaps, 8 more snaps than Khalil Herbert. It's disgusting in that backfield.
Yeah.
Going into what we're going into, obviously, as we talk about, these weeks are very important. I am not trusting a Chicago Bears running back, even Deontay Foreman, seeing that he's getting the bulk of the carries in the backfield, because Justin Fields still got 1 more carry than him. So
yeah,
I'm all right off that. Cole Kmet had another decent week, one that I think we might be able to trust effectively. It's him and DJ Moore as the targets. We did see a reappearance from Darnell Mooney in this one, not to any degree that we're trusting him, but back to Cole Kmet, 85% of the snaps, and he got 5 of his 7 targets for 66 yards, giving him 11.6 points.
Yeah.
Pretty good day out of him. Darnell Mooney, like I talked about, kind of made a reappearance, played 90% of the snaps, got 7 targets, but only was able to catch 2 of them. 44 yards, so 6.4 points. DJ Moore, as we said, when Justin Fields is playing, you got to play DJ Moore. He got 10 targets, only caught 6 of them, 68 yards and a touchdown, though. Also had 3 rushing attempts for 20 yards and a touchdown, giving him 26.8 points.
Mm-hmm.
You have to play DJ Moore. I think even against the Browns, I mean, unless you have a super stacked roster, I just don't see a way to keep DJ Moore out of it. They're going to find ways to get him the ball, as we saw with him running it. So, yeah, that'll be all for this one, though.
Yeah, DJ. I love DJ Moore, dude. He's a baller. He's like a bona fide. Like, he is very good at football.
Oh yeah.
To another interesting game. The Jaguars at the Browns. And the Browns, led by none other than 38-year-old Joe Flacco, were able to beat the Jaguars 31-27. Trevor Lawrence did play. We both kind of, agreed. 1, we were surprised that Trevor Lawrence even played. And 2, how would he be if he did play? If you did decide to start him this week, he did turn in a solid fantasy day. He actually threw the ball 50 times. Against the Browns, the number 1 passing defense, they threw the ball 50 times.
Whatever they gave him, wow.
Yeah. He completed...
Given Deshaun Watson. Apparently not, because maybe Joe Flacco was just better.
Yes. Trevor Lawrence was 28 of 50, 257 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, carried the ball 3 times for 11 yards. I'm surprised he even had a carry. 20.38 fantasy points. Again, a solid fantasy week, though. Travis Etienne was not efficient on the ground. He carried the ball 14 times for 35 yards, but he did get in the end zone. He also caught all 4 of his targets for 37 yards, 17.2 fantasy points against a Cleveland defense. That's very solid. That is a good week for him. Apparently, Tank Bigsby is just irrelevant because Dearness Johnson is getting all the backup work, which is crazy. And he finished with 4.8 fantasy points. Now to the receiver room. Without Christian Kirk, how will it look? Well,
I just want to go on record to say I did recommend. I said no matter what, you got to start Etienne and Ingram.
Yeah. No, you did.
So.
And then, you know what? Yeah, we'll go to Ingram first. Screw it. 12 targets, 11 catches, 95 yards, 2 touchdowns, 32.5 fantasy points. A monster week. He only caught his first touchdown of the season last week. And he gets 2 more this week. Yeah, Evan Ingram, he was so bad on the Giants. Like, it wasn't even Daniel Jones half the time. I remember, like, he was like stone hands Ingram because you'd throw it and it would just bounce off his hands. He wouldn't catch anything. But fantastic week for Evan Ingram. Can't say the same for Calvin Ridley. He was targeted 13 times. He only got 4 of them for 53 yards. 9.3. The second highest fantasy point from a receiver was Parker Washington, who plays 62% of snaps. Now that Christian Kirk's out, Parker Washington is kind of stepping into that rotation. He only saw 3 targets in those 62%, but he caught 2 of them for 27 yards and a touchdown. There was the third Deshaun touchdown. Zay Jones is actually someone I'm interested in. Who did I say he caught it from?
Deshaun.
I said Deshaun?
Yes.
Okay, that's a complete... I don't even know. I have no idea.
We move on.
Yeah. Zay Jones. I'm slightly interested in it, actually. I know they play Baltimore next week, only because, 1, he played 84% of snaps. 2, he had 14 targets.
Good Lord.
He only caught 5 of them for 29 yards, 7.9 fantasy points. Him and Calvin Ridley. I mean, Ridley, 9.3. The thing with Ridley is he was being drafted around like DK Metcalf, Debo, Amari Cooper before these guys, actually. Like, slightly before. So, we can't sit here and be like 9.3 doesn't absolutely kill you, because for a lot of people, that's the first or second wide receiver you drafted. So 9.3 is a bit of a disappointing week. But he did get the volume. That is a positive. On to the Browns.
Better than Amon-Ra and Mike Evans.
Yeah, what a week for these guys to have terrible weeks. On to the Browns, led by the man himself, Joe Flacco. 26 of 45, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, an interception, 4 carries for -1 yard, 21.34 fantasy points. Out-dueling Trevor Lawrence at 38. How are you going to feel rooting against him next week?
He's on the Browns.
I know. But are you also like, is half you, or not even half, are you going to be like, I know you got love for Joe Flacco.
Yeah, but he's in the wrong colors, so.
Yeah. Well.
I mean, it's like, you know.
No, I know. But.
If Derek Carr were on the Broncos.
Yeah, that's insane. Don't ever say that again. Thank you. That's.
How do you think I feel about Joe Flacco on the Browns?
No, I know, but he's he's 38 though. It's not like he was a free agent that just signed there. They're the only team that called him.
I'm just saying.
No, I know.
Regardless, the Ravens legend on the Browns.
And he's making the Browns, like, at least for now, relevant again, which is
I completely agree.
Which is crazy, yeah. Jerome Ford injured his wrist in this one. He was able to return, but something to monitor for sure. He did carry the ball 12 times for 51 yards, caught 5 of his 6 targets for 31 yards, 13.2 fantasy points. Solid week. He only played 57% of snaps because, again, he did miss a little more than he would have with that wrist injury, which meant Kareem Hunt, honestly, I feel like he didn't even get more run than he would have. He played 37% of snaps, 10 carries for 27 yards, caught his only target for 3 yards, but he rushed for a touchdown, gave him 10 fantasy points. We're not starting Kareem Hunt in playoffs. Absolutely not. Jerome Ford, yes. Kareem Hunt, no. Amari Cooper stayed healthy and was targeted 14 times. Caught 7 of them for 77 yards, lost a fumble, 12.7 fantasy points. Not a terrible week. It is what it is. Sucks he lost the fumble because that would have been almost 15 fantasy points, but a decent week. I'm mainly looking at the 14 targets and saying, okay, Joe Flacco will throw the ball to him. Elijah Moore only saw 6 targets, caught 3 of them, 42 yards, 7.2. And David Bell only played 9% of snaps, but finished with 11.1 fantasy points because he had a 41-yard touchdown on his only catch. David Njoku is on fire. He had 8 targets, caught 6 of them, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns, 27.1. Him and Evan Ingram combined for 59.6 fantasy points.
Yeah.
That's got to be the highest from 2 tight ends playing in the same game. I don't know how long. Has to be quite a while, though. That's insane. But that's all I had for this one. Honestly, a very good game. A game I thought that was going to be super low scoring was actually kind of a shootout. So that was cool to see.
Yeah, and there also was the chance of seeing CJ Beathard in this one, but that did not happen, as we saw.
Yeah.
So we'll see how the Jags-Ravens game shakes out this upcoming week.
Yeah.
On to another very disappointing performance. Texans went into New York and got curb stomped.
Yeah.
Lost 30-6. Now, it did not help that obviously Tank Dell was out for the rest of the year. Dalton Schultz did not play. And after only 3 snaps in this game, Nico Collins would exit for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
Caught his lone target for 13 yards, giving him 2.3 points before he left. So thankfully he didn't leave you with the 0. But yeah, lost Nico Collins very early in this one. CJ Stroud struggled quite a bit. Played 86% of snaps before he got a concussion and was ruled out of this game. Only completed 10 of his 23 passes for 91 yards, giving him 3.6 points. So, very disgusting day on this side of the Texans, as you can imagine. Davis Mills came in to back him up, I guess. Completed 1 of his 5 passes for 4 yards. Devin Singletary was the more effective running back in this one. Apparently, Damian Pierce, I don't know what's going on there. Because Devin Singletary had 13 attempts for 65 yards and a touchdown. No targets out of the backfield or anything of that manner, but he got 12.5 fantasy points. Damian Pierce had 4 rushing attempts for 9 yards and caught his 1 target for -2 yards, giving him 1.7 points. He only played 14% of the snaps. Dario Ngumbawale played 29% of the snaps. So I guess it's Devin Singletary moving forward, even with Damian Pierce being back and healthy. That's what I'm taking away from that, but that is very questionable going forward as to what I want to do with that team.
Yeah.
So, especially with the CJ Stroud injury. And
yeah, if he misses, then...
Well, yeah, if he misses, we don't know the extent of the Nico Collins injury. And to get down into it, I mean, Brevin Jordan, to replace Dalton Schultz, caught all 3 of his targets for 35 yards, whopping 6.5 points. Noah Brown, who had previously been quite reliable, did not catch a single one of his 5 targets. Played 66% of the snaps. Did not record a catch.
Yeah.
John Mechie caught 1 of his 5 targets for 6 yards. Played 50% of the snaps. And Robert Woods caught his only 1 of 3 targets for -3 yards. Playing 71% of the snaps. Quite an awful day all around for the Texans.
Yeah.
When you lose by 24 to the Jets, nothing much can have gone.
That's true. That's very true.
Texans pass defense is also clearly food because Zach Wilson came in and threw the ball 36 times, completed 27 of those for 301 yards and a touchdown. Also ran the ball 3 times for 12 yards and lost a fumble for 19.2 points. Great game out of Zach Wilson and the Jets in general. Breece Hall played 62% of the snaps, ran the ball 10 times for 40 yards, but caught 8 of his 9 targets for 86 yards and a touchdown.
He's
Breece
getting
Hall
so many
is
targets.
What Austin Eckler was.
Yeah. Yes. Unbelievable.
And that's all you really need to know about that, because it is seemingly going to continue. It is what works for the New York Jets, and I don't think they're going to get away from it. Throw the ball to Breece Hall, throw the ball to Garrett Wilson. And yeah, Breece finished with 26.6 points. I mean, Dalvin Cook played 24% of the snaps, 7 attempts, 13 yards, caught his lone target for -5 yards. Doesn't even matter. Garrett Wilson caught 9 of his 14 targets. Yes, 14 targets, which we love to see. Played 91% of the snaps, 108 yards. Also had a rushing attempt for 3 yards, giving him a solid 20.1 points.
Yeah.
Tyler Conklin, 4 of his 6 targets for 57 yards, 9.7 points. Xavier Gipson caught his lone target for 3 yards, but also rushed the ball 1 time for 9 yards and a touchdown, 8.2 points. We would wish that would go to Breece Hall, but so on and so forth. And of course, why not get Randall Cobb involved?
Absolutely.
Playing 19% of the snaps, he caught his lone target for 15 yards and a touchdown. You'd love to see it. Good job, Randall. But that's all for that one. Very, very, very disappointing showing from the Texans. Again, another one that I said you have to probably start CJ Stroud regardless of how tough the Jets defense is. I must admit, I did not see Nico Collins exiting the game after 3 snaps. So while that obviously plays into it, it is a recommendation I made, so I will apologize for that. But yeah, it is fantasy football. Sometimes Guys
Yeah.
exited the game after 3 snaps, and
Yeah.
there is absolutely nothing you can do about it.
No,
So,
that is very true. Unfortunate things just happen that no one can foresee sometimes.
nope.
Well, I'll go to my other NFC South matchup, which was the Panthers at the Saints.
You always
And
seem to get that division.
it's a gross division, dude. Like, it's the only division that doesn't have a single team with a winning record. The Bucks are in the playoffs right now at 6-7. Well, the Panthers did what the Panthers normally do and lost 28 to
There's only
6.
5 teams in the NFC with winning records.
Yeah, and honestly, I think the NFC wins the Super Bowl this year. An NFC team. That's a bold prediction.
see.
Yeah, that's obviously. But 50-50
Movie.
chance, you know? But Bryce Young, get him some help. How tall is
From God.
How tall is he?
I don't know. Can't be any taller than me. It looks like
He's like
I
5'10.
love
Dude,
that.
he gets
It,
every game he is getting destroyed.
it doesn't look fun playing football for him.
No.
And I mean, like, objectively, I'm not saying it doesn't look like he's having fun. I'm saying what he is experiencing looks
Terrible.
absolutely awful. Like, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone. Like, that looks horrible.
Multiple
Like, by
times
the
a
time
game.
he's getting to his plant foot, he's getting sacked. It's insane.
Yeah, it was a not good game at all for Bryce Young. Honestly, I will go out on a limb and say possibly his worst game of his young career, mainly because he was 13 of 36. That is a 33% completion rate. For 137 yards, didn't throw an interception or a touchdown. Ran the ball 3 times for 40 yards. He what?
He threw an interception.
Did they call it?
Did they count that as a fumble?
I think they called it as a fumble.
I was gonna say whatever. The ball went up in the air and the Saints guy caught it. Whether I guess
Yeah, they called it a fumble.
They called it a fumble, but
Yeah.
it was an impressive turnover, regardless of how you wanna.
Yeah.
It wasn't his fault either. Like
No, he's getting
trying
murdered.
to throw the ball, and by the time he's throwing it,
Yeah.
oh, there it goes again.
So he finished 7.48 fantasy points. Again, not a guy we're looking to start. We mainly hope for some Bryce Young success because it will play into some of the other weapons.
Also, not remotely the worst quarterback finish of the week.
Yes. Chuba Hubbard is the lead back without hesitation. He carried the ball 23 times for only 87 yards, but he caught his 2 targets out the backfield for only 9 yards, 11.6. Not a awful week. And it's something, because I remember we were talking about Chuba Hubbard or Jalen Warren was one of our start sits, one of the questions. And we said Chuba, and he did outscore Jalen Warren. So, we weren't super high on him, but depending on some of the start sit questions, we did like him. So he had a decent week. Miles Sanders only played 21% of snaps and was actually very efficient running the ball. He carried it 10 times for 74 yards, 7.4 fantasy points. Honestly, solid production. Didn't have any targets or catches out the backfield. And the receivers, Jonathan Mingo had kind of taken over as the wide receiver 1, at least target-wise, and he was again this game. Targeted 9 times, but only caught 2 of them for 22 yards, 4.2. DJ Chark gave us 4.6. And Adam Thielen turned in a decent week. 7 targets, 5 catches, 74 yards, 12.4. Again, I did not want to throw Adam Thielen in a lineup after his previous 2 weeks of how he looked. If you did happen to make that move, hopefully it was for like your flex or something, and he had a solid week. Derek Carr played despite having his 2nd concussion in a month. And apparently, did you see him say that he, at some point in this season, has fractured 3 different ribs?
Yeah, he was going into this one with a shoulder injury, rib injury, and concussion.
And he plays. Give it to him. He plays. He goes out there. Yeah, I mean,
I'm just.
Yeah. It was.
I'm not taking anything away from him. I believe he's taking away brain cells from himself at this point because I mean, at a certain point, my guy, you gotta think of
Yeah. Yeah.
a family, but
No,
you know.
absolutely. And the check down merchant was in full effect, being Derek Carr. He completed 18 passes on 26 attempts for only 119 yards. Threw 2 touchdowns and an interception, 11.76 fantasy points. The Saints were obviously carried in this game by their defense, because even Alvin Kamara had a solid week, but a bit less in the receiving side than I think a lot of us expected. He had 12 carries for 56 yards and a touchdown. That's where a majority of his points came from, because he caught 3 of his 5 targets for negative 11 yards. To catch 3 different passes out the backfield and have them accumulate for negative 11 yards is just like, okay. I mean, technically still a positive what? Positive 1.9 when you even those out. I have no, like, dude, they only...
I mean, I'm not gonna lie and say I watched the Panthers and Saints game. Obviously, I did not. The Ravens and Rams went into overtime, but
yeah, it just...
what happened in that? Like, what?
Yeah, it's, again, we talk about the Saints. They play ugly football, and that's what they do, but they find ways to win. So Kamara finished 13.5 fantasy points on 54% of snaps. His snap share has gone down each of the past 4 weeks, and Jamal Williams has gone up a little bit. I'm still not worried about it at all, because in 44% of snaps, Jamal Williams carried the ball 11 times for 43 yards, and that was it. So just 4.3 fantasy points. And the receiving room, we talked about Taysom Hill being banged up and probably not playing in this one, or at least looking like a long shot, and we did not see him. So Chris Olave, a guy we obviously started in this one, only saw 5 targets, caught 4 of them, 28 yards, got a touchdown that saved his fantasy week, 12.8. Not a terrible week, but again, I hope for more than 5 targets to Chris Olave.
Yes.
Lynn Bowden had 6.4. A.T. Perry had 5.4. Juwan Johnson only played 40% of snaps, saw 2 targets, caught them both for 10 yards, 3 fantasy points. I'm off the Juwan Johnson hype train. It just seemed like when you lose...
This was the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, you lose Rashid Shaheed, you lose Michael Thomas, Taysom Hill's not even playing. It's like, and Juwan Johnson was used a decent amount last season. This was the perfect game for him to step up. But the tight end that stepped up was Jimmy Graham, yet again. He got in the end zone again. He played 15% of snaps, saw 2 targets, caught them both, 16 yards, another touchdown. 9.6. Jimmy... Shout out Jimmy Graham, man. I'm glad after everything that happened in the offseason, he is playing football and scoring touchdowns. The Saints defense was the high scorer on the Saints with 24 fantasy points. Have a week. And that is it. It was an ugly game.
All right, on to another one with a surprising quarterback performance. The Colts went into Cincinnati to take on the Bengals and lost 34-14. This game was 14-14 at halftime, I believe, and then the Bengals just ran away with it in the second half.
Mm-hmm.
Gardner Minshew did Gardner Minshew things. 26 for 39 with 240 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Ran the ball 2 times for 5 yards, 13.1 points. Zach Moss, unfortunately, just has not been what we wanted him to be.
No.
In the absence of Jonathan Taylor during this bout, like he was during the last one. He had 13 attempts for 28 yards in this one. Fortunately, if you started him, he caught 4 of his 8 targets for 28 yards to somewhat salvage his day, giving him 9.6 points.
Yeah.
But yeah, the efficiency has just been horrible. Had a few attempts from like the 2, wasn't able to get in. Had a touchdown called back by a hold, so obviously that one didn't count. Just a very disappointing performance in the last 2 for Moss when we thought he had the opportunity.
You see who they play next week? It's Pittsburgh.
Steelers, yeah.
It's another trap. It's a trap, dude. It's a trap.
And see, this one he's gonna go out and actually like get in the end zone because it's gonna be hard to start him in the playoffs.
Of
I
course.
know it's gonna happen, but Kylan Granson played 38%. They were all over the place with tight end snap shares. They had Kylan Granson, Mo Ali Cox, the Will Mallory, all playing different amounts.
Yeah.
Granson caught 2 of his 4 targets for 17 yards, 3.7 points. He played 38%. Mo Ali Cox played 28%, but caught his lone target for a 2-yard touchdown. So he got 7.2 points. Alec Pierce played 91% of the snaps, as he has been in the 90s for most of their games. Caught 2 of his 3 targets for 22 yards, only 4.2 points. Pretty much what we see on a normal week out of him. Unfortunately, Josh Downs has not been performing the last couple of weeks in matchups that he had the perfect opportunity to.
Yeah.
Played 78% of the snaps, but only got 3 targets, in which he caught all of them for 32 yards, giving him 6.2 points. It is what it is. Not really someone, due to what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, that I'm trusting rolling into the playoffs.
Yeah.
Michael Pittman, on the other hand, is someone I am full steam ahead with. 86% of the snaps, 11 targets, caught 8 of them for 95 yards, 17.5 points. A guy that we have been shown does not need a touchdown to give us a great week. But if he does happen to get
He
in
caught
the
a
end
2-point.
zone, okay. So oh yeah, that's right.
Because
He
they
did get
missed
the
the
2-point. They
extra
missed
point. Freaking
which
Mac.
also to note on, we've seen Matt Gay make 5 field goals in a game, and also in this one, if you played him, got you -2 points because he missed a field goal and missed an extra point. Yeah. So yeah, Michael Pittman did also catch that 2-point conversion, which gave him the
19.5, yeah.
19.5, yeah. 17.5 before the 2-point.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so he's someone week in, week out we absolutely trust.
Yes.
And yeah, Michael Pittman's great. I mean, I feel very good about the trade that I made just because.
Absolutely. It was only because how deep this
him.
draft is. But
yeah,
yes.
I agree, but it's. Well, we can elaborate upon that later.
Yeah.
But
I agree with you, though.
Michael Pittman is far and away the number 1 target on the Colts, regardless of who the quarterback is, and it is great to see. On to the Bengals. Jake Browning had another great performance. 18 for 24, 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception, which was more or less Tanner Hudson's fault because he tried to catch the ball with one hand and effectively handed the ball to the Colts linebacker.
Yeah.
One of the more interesting pick sixes I've seen. I mean, if you saw the highlight, it was literally like he served the ball to him, tries to catch it with one hand, and it just, thank you, pick 6.
Yeah.
But regardless, also 3 attempts for 7 yards and a touchdown. A great day for Jake Browning. 24.7 fantasy points. Gotta love that. Joe Mixon, 21 attempts for 79 yards and a touchdown. Caught 3 of his 4 passes for 46 yards. Someone we said you needed to be starting this week. Got 21.5 points. I mean, should have been obvious at this point. One that wasn't so obvious, but has been getting more as of late. Chase Brown had 8 rushing attempts for 25 yards. Also caught all 3 of his targets for 80 yards and a touchdown. Had one of the better catch and runs for a touchdown that I've seen this year, making a great move at the end to secure the touchdown. He ended with 19.5 fantasy points.
Yeah.
I could very well end up being the starter on the Cincinnati Bengals next year because we know how this running back market works. And if you have a rookie that's even slightly effective, chances are the expensive vet is bye-bye.
Yeah.
Anyways, on to the pass catchers. Tanner Hudson did his Tanner Hudson thing. Played only 23% of the snaps, but got 2 of his 3 targets for 21 yards and a touchdown, giving him 10.1 points.
Yeah.
Again, the most effective tight end on the Bengals, but not the one who played the most. That would be Drew Sample. I don't know why. Irv Smith Jr. only played 13% of the snaps, didn't do anything.
Yeah.
Jamar Chase, unfortunately, did not have as much one. Probably due to the fact that a lot of the Bengals' yardage came from 3 big chunk plays to Joe Mixon, Chase Brown, and T. Higgins.
Yeah.
That'll kind of do it. So Chase only caught 3 of his 4 targets for 29 yards, giving him 5.9 points. Everybody has down weeks. T. Higgins, as I said, had a big chunk play. Played 75% of the snaps, caught 2 of his 4 targets for 72 yards, giving him 92 points. Better day for him. I mean, but the way the Bengals are playing, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
they might be trustworthy in the playoffs. We'll look at the matchups in our previews in the coming days, but yeah, we'll see about that. Tyler Boyd, obviously not someone we trusted anyways. 52% of the snaps, caught 2 of his 3 passes for 23 yards, 4.3 points. Trent Irwin played 20% of the snaps and did nothing. As I said, Drew Sample played 67% of the snaps, not even worth mentioning his stat line. Evan McPherson, another double-digit day for a kicker. But yeah. And that'll
That's
be it for
it.
the morning game.
Mm-hmm.
So, a big one, 7 games. We also have 7 more games for you guys in this next episode. Also, quite a few outcomes that we did not foresee by any
Absolutely.
means.
Absolutely.
So, some interesting things to talk about. We will get those to you in the next episode. Stay tuned, and we will be right back with that.
Yes, sir.